Hey guys, once again, welcome back. Once again, welcome back. This is Anurag, and yes, we'll continue with the mid game series. Let me just check if I'm live. Is anybody in the chat? Like, are we live? Yeah, I think we are live. Okay, so let's get started. And like at the start itself, I have a small puzzle for you. From what we have learned thus far, maybe from what we have learned thus far, like this is from my own game against 26 70 in 2018 in Spain. I'm white here and I'm in a winning position right now. I want you to think and tell me what you would do in this position next. I sacrificed the pawn actually. There was a pawn on a5 and I played a5 and b into a5 is what has happened. Hello Freeps, good to see you in the chat. Hopefully today there is no delay. And yes, so here I played a5 and b into a5 was played on the board, and anybody in the chat could let me know what do they think like I wanted to do next. It was basically like a tactic, but I calculated it well, but I executed like something a little bit wrong. So, but anybody can tell me what the next move would be in this position? Yes, knight c5 is the move, Anish. Absolutely. Knight c5 attacking here. And the point is that you're vacating the c5 square. So we'll see what happens with knight into c5. Uh, hello, somebody from the past. Bishop into c5. And black defended with rook f7. What is the next step that I should do in this position? Hello, Akshay. What is the next thing that I do here? This is from my own game, and we should try to learn from our own mistakes. So I'm highlighting something to you here. White to play, what would you do as white? Yes, bishop c5, rook f7 is on the board, Anish. Yes, of course. I think, again, I don't know what the delay is. There is something after rook f7. There is definitely something after rook f7 here. But what is it that is? Like there are many things you can do, of course. Like bishop into a7 is one thing you can do. Bishop into f8, rook into f8, rook into a7. Um, and then what happens is you win the pawn on a5. Um, oh, really? That's nice, Anish. I didn't know that you played against them. Excellent. So bishop into f8, rook into f8, and rook into a7 with the idea of winning the pawn on a5. You're winning the pawn by force here. This is one thing that I can do. I could have played bishop into a7. Let me just highlight the few choices available. Anything else, I could have moved the bishop and then tried to, capture the pawn. So there are many choices here. What should I have done? What do you think? Is there anything else I could have done in this position? Like, this is where you take a step back when you have many choices in the position. Clearly, one thing we all can agree here in the chat that bishop into a7 uh, probably wouldn't be the best thing for me to do here, right? So, anybody in the chat can tell me what I would do after bishop into a7 or what my opponent would have done. I'm white here, by the way. What my opponent would have done after bishop into a7 here. Again, somehow I believe there is some delay here, like the chat is coming in a little bit later. So rook into a7, rook into a7 followed by bishop c5. Simple tactic here, double attack, and you win the rook, and I lose the game, of course. So that is not what I would play. Bishop into a7 is clearly not a choice. Akshay, you said bishop a3. Yes, you can definitely think of bishop a3 also as a choice. The point is that you could take a step back and see that he's in a strong pin here. Like, sorry, this is the pin, the entire thing. So it's he's in a strong pin here. The rook is defending, and hardly any piece can move. Like, you could have taken bishop f8, but you can also do something else. Like, Akshay, you played bishop a3 here. Yeah, you can do it bishop a3 because black is not having anything immediate in this position to do. He cannot move the rook. He can move the king, of course, that is there, but not much. Like, you could do bishop f8 and rook a7 and win the pawn, but you can also, like, play bishop a3 and bishop f8 and then rook a7 and then win the pawn with a check. You could do it that way also. Clearly black cannot interfere because then I will play, okay, most of you must have got it, b6, and then I will just queen much faster. Black is not in time. I could have done that, but then I can do something better, right? Instead of bishop a3, I can do even something better, which I completely forgot in the game that I could do. I understood that the pin is strong, but I was a little worried about this pawn progressing further, like the pawn pushing. Yes, exactly. That is what I should do in this position. I can just move my king. That is what I completely forgot. I can just simply bring the king towards the game. And in the heat, like, this was the 41st move. We had completed 40 moves and we got extra time after that. And in the heat of that, I completely forgot that I can just bring my king. I had calculated that bishop f8 is winning. Bishop f8 is what I played in the game, which I'll show you. But I could have just done king f2. What I forgot to calculate is after a4, I can still bring the king closer. I don't really need to do bishop f8. So this is what I was worried about. Once I capture, now the rook comes and I lose the b5 pawn for the a4 pawn, which is just a draw. So if I defend this, he will just keep pushing and then eventually sacrifice and he will capture the b5 pawn. But I completely forgot that he's still in a pin and I can still bring my king on top because he cannot really push a3, right? That is what I completely forgot, that we have a bishop on c5 which can capture back on a3, and there is not much that he can change and do anything here. Like, he's just in the pin, and if he tries to do something like this, the important point is rook a7 comes with a check and I nicely win a pawn back on a4, and my king is much closer, and that's a big important point here. Once again, people who have joined in new, thanks a lot for tuning in. Doing this for the next we're on the 6th day, so 6 by 14. However, do the math, it's about 8 days left, so after today's day. So let's go back and see what difference it made to the game. I played bishop into f8 first directly. In a rush, I was like 41st move. I know that this is also winning for white, but I could have done much better. Now the problem here is that black's king came a little bit faster, like king f7, king e6, and now when I go here, he can even bring the king black closer immediately, and then he's able to come faster. Now imagine I had one extra move in the position with king f2. The same thing, let's say he had done something else. I could have very well done the same thing, but I had one extra move, and that is my king coming and cutting off that king. So it would have made a big difference in that way. Even after h5, I could even delay one more move. So all I had to do is just take a step back and again verify what I was doing. And maybe I would have easily found this, but I made a mistake by rushing in on the 41st move. It was not even the 40th move, but in that heat, I just immediately blundered. I'm very mixed, Ramakrishna. I'm a very balanced player. I can play very interesting tactics also. I can play good positional ideas also. Balanced player, not only simple positional or something. And I will show you my games also later. This is just a tactic I wanted to highlight from what we have learned until now. You can also learn similarly from your own mistakes and try to improve accordingly. Now let's go to the next game and start. So today we'll be focusing on, like, some sacrifices, and as we see here, material sacrifice patterns. Like, let me just reduce this thing. Looks a little too big. Let's reduce it. Yes, this looks fine. So we're going to focus on some sacrifice, material sacrifices, like different patterns, different positions, understanding when to. And basically, one of the important things about initiative, right? We're focusing on initiative also. It's all correlated. Sometimes you play initiative is when you're trying to initiate something faster than your opponent. That is called initiative. So mostly you're either sacrificing some material, um, you're cutting on some develop. Let's say initiative is, let's say you're playing for an attack. You can prepare and develop and then get your pieces aligned and then go for an attack, or you're trying to take the lead here and immediately start with h4. That is what is initiative. You try to immediately get something going faster than your opponent. Let's say you're thinking of getting your pieces in the right order and you're a little worried that black is also looking for c5. You feel like he's coming faster, or he's like, it's not he's able to regroup his pieces effectively. Then you can go for some initiative ideas like h4, and we'll see from the following examples that we're going to see. The best thing for black white to do would be to regroup his pieces and then slowly go. When to play for it, when not to play for it also is very important. Like in this position, black is not really threatening c5, right? Then we go back to the position where we have studied those isolated pawns, and we know how to play against this isolated pawn here. We have done that in the second or third day. So people who haven't, you can definitely check it out there. But if you play something like c6, you can just regroup your pieces, queen d2, and you can go for development. And it's quite good. It's simple. You don't need to rush into attack. But let's say white's, just imagine Buck's knight was not here and he was getting something quickly, or let's say his pawn was already on c5 and you had a pawn on c3. Let's say it's something like this, and well, I'll show you through the following example. Here we don't really have it. Like, let's say you play something like this and b5 and an attack is starting. Exactly. Now you could regroup your pieces and you can do rook e2, rook e1, or you can regroup knight. You can develop your pieces all together. Rook a d1. That's very silly. It doesn't really do anything on d1. But you can definitely think of rook e2, double up your rooks. But that is a little slow, right? Your opponent is coming with a5, b4 quickly. So in that case, looking at things like h4, h5, is like you're going for the initiative before he starts his attack. You want to take the lead and create problems for him on the king side. So that is initiative. Sometimes you tend to sacrifice a material. Here, I'm sure that nobody would want to take a pawn on h5 and double their pawns like this in this position, and white is able to simply attack these weaknesses that he has created. But elsewhere, sometimes you also tend to sacrifice a pawn on h5 to open up files, or sometimes you sacrifice a pawn on e5 to open up diagonals. Like, it depends. Like, so we'll see examples. So let's get going with the next one. Now here it is black to play. Let's like shift it. So it is black to play. How would you try to continue in this position? Like, you can see that um, but bishop is not really doing anything that important or much in this position. You have some weak spots to attack, and again, first you should look at the position and see what is happening. One of the major things is that this bishop is not very ideal because it's not having anything on this side of the board. And secondly, if you like, simply play something like rook b8, b3, he has all his pawns on the light squares, and that's not very ideal for white's bishop here. Now, I wanted to just give it a thought, and we have to also continue. We cannot just sit down. Rook a8 is one idea here. What else can black do in such positions? Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, understanding is more important than memorizing, Siddhant. Yeah, understanding is more important than memorizing. If you just memorize things, I mean, like if I know that you're memorizing thing, it'll be so easy to outplay you, because I know that you're only memorizing things in coming. What if I do something differently? I just change one move, you're out of your memory, right? So understanding is important than memory. That's why I say openings. Some people have this bad habit of only studying openings. uh, Understanding is more important than studying all those lines, because what if your opponent plays badly? He's not playing the best move. He plays some. What will you do? You don't know to exploit it because you only know from a memory. I've studied the best line. This is not what I saw on the board. So you will not know how to exploit it. So that is also important. Understanding is important. What to do in certain positions like this. Yes, yes, of course. Like, I was just giving an example. Of course, I'm not going to give a free pawn like this. I was just saying attacking b2. So let's say this rook attacks b2. That is an idea. So you can think of two, three different things in such positions. You can look for maneuvering a pieces, like Anish said, knight a6, sorry, knight b8, knight a6, knight b4. The knight can do its jumps. You can maneuver your pieces You can attack direct targets and make some weaknesses. For example, uh, just based on Anish idea here, I will play something like rook b8, and there is a point behind this. So if he plays b3, I can go with a3 also in open files. Again, you have different ways to play. Like I say, I can also do this a3. It's just fixing the structure. The bishop, anyways, is horrible. And now I see that I have opened up a beautiful outpost here. Again, I'm playing some things queen d2. What I can do is I can focus on this important outpost, and then I can think of, using Anish idea. And then I have a nice knight there on b4 attacking there. It's called maneuvering. You're trying to maneuver your pieces into the better square. So this game is not entirely about initiative because you already have it. You already have, like, a very strong position. You don't really need to rush into your attacking possibilities. Like, you don't need to do g5 and g4. But sometimes you can also look at some interesting positional elements, like, which how can even better your position. Rook f8 was a good thing, but black did something yeah, even different, and he played this move e4. So the point of e4 is he attacking b2, opening up diagonals, opening up this diagonal, attacking b2. And secondly, after f into e4, you're allowing some counterplay for white here. Okay, so this is again unnecessary if you have something as simple as rook b8 or knight b8, knight a6, knight b4, or fixing him with a3, b3, and then going knight b. You have something, but you can always execute that. But black played differently. He went e4, and after f into e4, his idea was not to go queen into b2 and allow counterplay. That is not what he is planning. This is not the way to play. Okay, this is bad because you're just allowing your opponent to completely come into the game. So this pawn sacrifice was to just get a nice square, beautiful square for the knight on e5, and then he can progress even on that side. He can also keep pressure, on this side of the board. He can keep b2 under attack. What he's doing is he's just completely dominating this bad bishop here on the light squares. Like, the light squares are completely blocking his own bishop, and white is struggling with his pieces because he's hardly getting any play. So this was a pawn sacrifice to open up an outpost on e5, make your opponent's pieces even worse. And like I said earlier, like, if you're going to play as white here, you're not just trying to sit down, you're trying to do some sort of counterplay, or some sort of idea should be there in your mind. So maybe after rook b8, b3, a3, we were saying we will take our own time to do this. White might also think of, going for something aggressive like g4. This is the way to find some counterplay going. And black saw that if he pushes f4, now he doesn't really have that e5 square, and he has opened up some diagonal. Maybe white might start something like this. And if he pushes e4 now, he's too late to do what he wanted to do, because white will simply capture gf5, and the position is opening up too much to his preference. He doesn't really want that. So that's why black played e4, consolidated, got that outpost, and then started maneuvering his rooks, other pieces, g5, queen g6. He took care of this important bishop and took care of the most important tactical ideas that white could have played with g3 or so. Initiative is when you're trying to take a lead, like I just explained it at the start. Let's say I'm sacrificing e4 because I feel like let's say in this position, um, mm, let's just say I'm doing something like this, and I'm keeping this on the board. Now let's say white is able to get b4 and is able to open up the position. Or let's say on the other hand, we'll go to a better example. You're seeing that white is getting something like g4 and is able to open up and create something on that. You don't want to him to allow that because you're not having anything like immediately on the board. You want to take that initiative, you want to take that lead in the plan, or you want to take the lead in that idea. You want to develop faster. So sometimes, like, you want your knight to reach e5 before his attack starts. That time you can sacrifice some material, or you can ignore some development. Like, in the previous position, I showed you, like, you can ignore some development of like this rook. You would normally develop it and then look for something like e4. Like, that is called ignoring the development of that rook. We'll see from examples, you'll come to know. I'll give you a better idea from the following examples. You're trying to go for something faster than your opponent. Initiate. It's simple. The word is initiate. You're trying to initiate faster than your opponent. So playing for the initiation of the attack, initiation of faster development, initiation of better piece placement. That is what you're trying to establish here with the word initiative. It's called the word initiative, but you're trying to take a lead. That's what is the initiation. So So we saw that a4 was the for a reason. It's not always needed. We'll figure out when exactly it's needed, when exactly it will be useful, and we'll see some following positions too. So now here, I will, what I'll do is I'll just flip the board for you. And yeah, so this has happened on the board here. Actually, I should have shown you the game. 1 minute. See if I can get the game itself here. It's okay. Let's start from this position. I'm not able to find it, but let me do a reference. Okay, I think we can look at it here. Can we see it on the board? One minute, guys. See if I can get this. Okay, it's not really working, so we'll just stick to the current position. And here now, White has played. It's a game between Lasker. Actually, I wanted to show it to you, but okay, I'm on this position. We'll see it somewhere later, and we'll come across it anyways later on in the as we go along. But in this position, White played the move d6. Now, this is like sacrificing some material, and White has also done something differently in the opening. He has brought his queen out. Like, this is not what you would normally want to do. You would not normally want to do something like that's nice. Akshay, you understood it. That's good. That's the entire goal here. Uh, we're trying to help something get better to you. And if you don't understand something, guys, you can definitely mention in the chat. It could be as simple. We'll try to explain it to you. So we'll try our best. And d6 was given here because, first of all, it is sacrificing a pawn, but it is destroying black's pawn structure, and you're taking an initiative or a lead. You will also take a lead in development very quickly now, because if you go to see black's bishop, it's planning to come out this way, or you'll have to move d5 d6 and then come out with the bishop with e6. Takes a lot of time. Let's say we play something like bishop g2, we can immediately, at least temporarily, stop this bishop's development. So by sacrificing the pawn, you're spoiling his structure, and you're also, like, taking a lead in development in this position. Now, bishop g2 is not what you did. I want you to think and tell me what do you think White did? Bishop g2 was also okay in this position, but White played a little bit differently. Anybody in the chat, you all can think, and let me remove this arrows. You all can think and let me know how exactly should we continue development, which point should be our focus, or where should we try to get our pieces going. Yes, yes, of course, we will be scheduling tournaments in the near future, guys. So don't worry. We will also be playing with the viewers and the subs on YouTube. So don't worry about that. Right now, for the next few days, we are focusing on the middle game studies, but we might also stream twice or something. We can definitely do that, guys. So don't worry. We'll, we are not sure whether we'll be having the tournament this Friday, coming Friday, but if yes, then we'll definitely post it well before. By tomorrow, we will let everybody know what to do. Yes, very good, Anish. Like B3 is one idea. Ruben also said H4 is one idea. So this is what you try to do. You have given a pawn. You're trying to go for something quickly. You can go for H4 and start an attack, which was also acceptable here in this position. You can definitely go for H4 here and start an advancing like H4, H5, get an attack going. B3, take away this diagonal. That is also quite good because you are immediately trying to go development. Bishop f6 not coming. But there's one problem with this move b3. Like if he castles, what happens is after bishop f6, white is still slightly better, okay? But you don't want to go for exchanges immediately. Now coming to this move, knight h3 and queen h6, that also we'll have a look at, or just set queen h6 in this position. This is trying to, stop castling, I suppose, or just you're trying to stop castling for the moment. But okay, it's still not that bad actually. I would say it's not that bad. But white black has something here in this position which not very easy to spot. But I'll show it to you what exactly black can do. He can play this more annoying bishop f8 here for queen h6. Okay. So what happens for queen h6 is, yes, knight h3 will be coming back in a moment. Bishop f8, your queen comes back, he can easily bring the bishop in between. And if the queen goes anywhere else, he can even think of putting out the bishop on g7. Bishop f8 is a little bit of a problem thereafter. Queen h6. Not easy to spot. It was a good idea, just but not really helpful. Same goes for queen d4. You can play bishop f6, or you can even think of castling, and after bishop h6, it's a nice idea, double attack. G7 mate idea, but unfortunately your opponent is having bishop f6, and suddenly it's time to, you just lost all that initiative that you gained. It's time to regret this. So this is not what you would want to do. H4 is good. B3 maybe not the best time, but definitely a good idea. And somebody said knight h3, and that is definitely one more good move here. You should also understand where your pieces belong. For example, just you said queen h6, you could use your knight on f3, g5. But then how about going to h3, because the focus now is not really the e5 square, right? You can also think about just capitalizing the d5 square instead. That's one thing. If he castles, you can easily go queen h6 and try to dominate on that g5 square. So the knight on h3 is still going there. It's still going via f4 and trying to capture this beautiful square on d5. And you're also thinking ahead, like if you play something like b6, bishop g2 is also directly ready on that diagonal, preventing black from completing development quickly and taking the initiative. You're trying to do everything effectively here. Knight h3 is a good move in this position, which he followed in the game. h4 also would have been merit, like had some merit on its own. h4 also was good, but knight h3 was played in the game. Black castle, and white exactly did queen h6 in the game. This is what he did, because he's thinking of going knight g5 and at least taking away the dark square bishop. Simple plan, queen h6, knight g5. He could have also done knight f4, by the way, or bishop g2, but when you sacrifice a pawn or you're sacrificing some material, try to look at the best way to go about. Try to take that initiative. Don't suddenly start slowing down, because you have sacrificed material. Especially right now, it's only a pawn. Later on, we might see piece sacrifice, exchange sacrifice. In this positions, how to continue, we'll be looking at that. But one thing to keep in mind, don't suddenly slow down, because you have sacrificed material. You cannot really, take your own time. Like here, you have sacrificed material. It's still like only one pawn, and still that pawn structure is bad. But let's say he had sacrificed material and his pawn was on c7. In that situation, he's a pawn up finally. So you cannot really slow down. You have to be a little bit faster, I think. So Laskar went with queen h6 here. He's trying to do immediately. It was probably not the best move though. I would have still preferred to play bishop g2 and take it slow. But he went with this and went with knight g5. So after bishop g5, he got the pair of bishops to play with. Black played f6, bishop d2, and b6, and he's trying to take over this. And this is where now white changed the approach, because like he had the bishop pair. So instead of going desperately with h4 and h5 for the attack, he went ahead and castled and then started focusing on the d6 weakness. Now this is not important to a goal. We have got the required advantage. You should see if you can, use this bishops for a dangerous attack on the king side if it's possible. And that would be like, looking at bishop e4 and bishop into g6. Again, if black plays queen e7, you will have to probably retreat the bishop back, and it's not really helping. Bishop into g6, that it's not really working, right? Queen comes in between. Now you can think of an exciting check here, bishop d5, but after king h8, again, are you really able to use that? If not, then maybe you can just slow down. My attack is not strong enough, agreed, but I can do something else, like complete my development, prevent important exchanges, and still keep my attack strong. Like, for example, in this, let's say castle, and black is looking forward to exchanges. What would you do in this position? We have some weaknesses here, and black is still not very well placed. How would you continue in this position? You have a few choices. You can go bishop into a5. So people will be very excited to double another pawn here. Knight can be stronger than the queen. Of course, knight can be stronger than the queen in certain instances, but I don't think we'll be seeing a position today where knight can be stronger than a queen. But It can be, definitely. There will be instances where the knight is stronger than the queen. Imagine the queen on h6 is trapped and there is a knight on the board. Like, it's definitely stronger than the queen. E4 is the way to play. Like, definitely you would try to prevent the exchanges, keep your double bishop advantage, and then start focusing on the weaknesses that black has on the board. You can definitely later even think of defending and then try to improve this bishop, or h4 and try to attack. But now you wanted to see how the knight can be stronger than the queen. I'll just show you one example just for some purpose. Like, let's say e4 and knight c6, something like this, and h4, and you're casually going for the attack. Suddenly you realize that after g5 the knight is stronger than the queen, because the queen, although strong there, is going to get trapped with knight f7 or knight g4. You cannot really stop it, right? The knight can be stronger than the queen sometimes. The queen is not really resourceful enough now. It needs his pieces to get out. Imagine there was a knight on h6 though, free to roam around and get out somewhere, but the queen cannot do that, right? It cannot jump. So yes, knight can be also stronger than the queen. So bishop to e5 is not actually the best thing to do in this position. Now this is Larsen, actually, not Lasker. Larsen is the player. He went with bishop into a5 in this position. Again, this is not what I would advise here, because you do weaken his pawns. You do have a strong advantage, like king into g2, b into a5, but there are good chances of black getting some rook endgames to a draw. His rook also gets activated immediately, and he can do the same thing which you did, like for example a4, and sacrifice some material to get some good play. So I would advise against this. I would prefer to play e4 in this position, but we'll see that later. Let's move on to the next example. A lot of examples to sorry, this is not the example. Yeah, this is the example now. And here we see an imbalance already in the position. We were seeing some examples of pawn sack. Here again we see um, like material sacrifice is what we are focusing on. So here again we see that white has sacrificed in exchange. Now, what do you think about the position here? White has one pawn and a bishop, let's say, for the exchange. He has two bishop advantage. Black has a knight and a rook for this. How would you evaluate or rate this position? The bishops can be very rated, like very strong and powerful, but how would you evaluate and rate this position? Would you want to be black or would you want to be white? Yes, I use ChessBase. It's of course you can buy it on ChessBase India website. Very nice software, and I think every chess player does tend to have it. Very useful and helpful. Yes, white is better according to Abhishek. What about the other people? Now, why is white better even though materially, right? Bishop and pawn are not really equal to a rook, correct? A rook is definitely stronger than a bishop and a pawn, definitely under normal circumstances. So, on what basis is white better here? Some of you must be very advanced, even me. Sometimes I tend to ignore this simple things, like you count the material. White is definitely weaker. Bishop and pawn are not as strong as the rook. So when you're looking at this position, trying to understand why, like white gives the action, how to judge it, like white is better, it depends on other things we have done in the previous days: piece activity, piece placement, space advantage, where exactly are the pawns situated, how weak are they. These are the things that you have to take into account to understand that, okay, I have bishop and pawn which is materially inferior to a rook, but black doesn't really have, like black has one open rook file. Like, see, rooks are only stronger if they have like rook open files. You give them squares to dominate, they can easily jump around. Comes to c1, jumps to h1. Like if white plays king e2 here, suddenly black is okay. His rook is activated now. Black's problem is his piece activity is not really coming out. The other factors that you have to consider, like rook is not being able to activate immediately. The knight also is not really having the freedom to immediately jump around. He has one important idea though, knight c5, which we'll come back to. But the other things to consider, pawns. Like the pawns are not really ideal here for. Let me remove this. The pawns are not really ideal here for black because they're very weak and a bishop, two bishops actually very strong on either side. But basically here they are very weak because one simple silly mistake like can cost you a lot of material here with bishop f7 coming in and completely wiping out all the pawns there. The bishops are really strong here because they're able to utilize their diagonals. They are free, they're open, and they're outside. Like imagine this bishop was on f2. That would have been a passive bishop and not been as effective as a bishop on d6. So piece placement, space, placement of your own pieces, how much you're restricting the mobility of your opponent's pieces, and how useful his pieces are. Like suppose this is a rook. Is it really useful? It's not really useful here. So based on that, this position is better for white. You should try to understand how much you're restricting opponent's pieces. Not always is material the way to consider. Like you should not say like okay, bishop is 3 and rook is 5. That is not always going to be the case. Sometimes looking at the position, trying to understand what is happening will let you know what is the evaluation of the position. So bishop g8 and bishop h7. Now bishop g8 is not really the way to win here. Of course, now I told you like you have to verify your opponent's threats. So I can see one simple threat here, knight c5. What would you do? You have to try to restrict him or push him behind and try to stop that threat. So what would you do in this position? G6 weakness, of course, all weaknesses are there. I highlighted every weakness and everything. This is the way you try to judge your position or understand it better. I'll show you the next position and the difference in that position. But here, knight c5 is coming. Probably you have to push him away or prevent that knight c5 idea. So if you just play casually like king d3, right, and knight black gets knight c5, first thing happens is he's either going to get one of these bishops. Both the bishops are very important for us and very dear. You would lose one of the bishops and the rook gets freedom to go around now. Now it will start shuttling onto this. You can temporarily try to prevent it, but the king will put you in zooks. Somehow the rooks, if it enters somehow, this is a bad situation for us. Because then he will just keep juggling around everywhere, wipe out all your pawns, and that will not really work well for us. We need both the bishops. Even if you give this bishop away, let's say, somehow, like let's ignore the other possibilities and let's just capture this. Even here, your bishop cannot really defend the g3 pawn effectively. So the rook will just enter and show its true potential. The king also can take a merry walk here and capture all your pawns. But let's say the rook enters c1, it will just wipe out everything on that board, and your two bishops that you had is going to be an important factor that you're going to miss after this. So the right way to continue, bishop d5, push him behind if possible. If the rook goes here, next move you can think like the other way to restrict is b4 if you this was the only idea in the game, but Lux has other ideas he can facilitate. So it's important to push him back, and this is where we are taking initiative on the board. We're immediately able to get something. We have sacrificed material, but we're able to win some material back, or we're able to restrict. For example, rook b6. Now you can probably win the material immediately, but you have stopped the most important idea of knight c5. So you can do bishop c7 and win. Or you can even just put this cool b4 on the board and completely restrict him on b6 here. The rook is not going anywhere. That's also one more way to play. Or you can join the king towards the party, take it to a5, and the rook is struggling. You can do different things. Bishop c7 is the easiest way, of course, but I'm just giving like you have taken care of c5. The rook is not able to activate itself or use it to the potential. Like the rook is the open file. It needs the open file. It's not able to go back. It's not able to do anything. Stuck there. You can take your own time and improve also. So bishop d5, rook b8, bishop b7. Again, the rook is probably forced, or he will have to go for rook c4, but that doesn't really do much because once we capture, like he just completely lost everything. So again, you can play king c3 and still win, where you'll have to probably just think that okay, if he goes here, I will play e6 and he will be lost, but that is okay. You can also like take care of his most important like ideas like this. Sorry, rook here is what I meant. Taking care of that, taking a king to the other side if it's needed, saving your pawns and then capture. You can do it however you want, but you have done the main important thing. You've wiped down his pawns on the a side, and now the material is also, if you count it, it's equal. It's bishop pawn and rook, bishop, pawn, and pawn for the rook. So that's also materially equal, but you're going to get more also after that. And black's pieces are badly placed. So now let's just go to the next position. And there is a okay, this is not the next. Let's just go to the next position. You can see there is a small difference in this. There is a bishop now. How would you rate this position now in this? Again, I want you to understand. I told you, like, this is the, sorry, we'll highlight it this way. The rook is superior than the bishop and one pawn. That's the only compensation we have at the moment, bishop and one pawn. But how would you rate this position again for white? Once again, guys, if you're new here, you can definitely hit the like button and subscribe. We'll be bringing such content up on a regular basis. And if you have suggestions or ideas, hit the comments, and we are most willing to take it. And any questions here, pop it in the live chat. I'm willing to answer each and every question here. Don't shy of him asking your difficulties. Nandi, can you please, Mr. If you're listening to the chat, and can you please stop Mr. Nightbot here, or shall I do it myself? Let me do it myself. This Nightbot is getting in the way all the time. Guys, you all have any suggestions? Like, I want you to just tell me. I'll just take 1 minute here and just need to fix something. You all can definitely tell me what you all think is going to be the next move, and also what you all think about the position. Do you all think white is still better? The stream is this 7 p.m. India, always 7 p.m. Only one day on Sunday we had 8 p.m. and even next Sunday, I think we will be meeting next Sunday. We will be having it at 8 p.m. or so. Like, we'll start a little bit later than normal. Only on the Sunday because we have another tournament, or if we have a tournament on Friday, we might adjust the time accordingly. Only during those days. Otherwise, we'll start at 7 p.m. always. So again, right, in this position, bishop g8 is not really a bad move. Like, you should try not to allow him entry. That's the only thing to understand here. You play king d3 and he comes rook c1, that will be a big problem. That will be a problem to face. Bishop d5 similarly still works, it's not a problem. But now if you evaluate the position, right, white is definitely doing fine here, as long as you don't exchange pieces or don't exchange these bishops immediately. So leaving control of some squares, and I, like, let's say you play bishop d1 casually here and he gets more and more control, that's where things will start slipping away and the rook will start becoming active. It can become active, the king can join in, then you will start having problems. So as long as you keep the things intact, right, you will absolutely have no problems. Yes, Monday to Saturday 7 p.m, Sunday 8 p.m, like 8 or 8:15 p.m, just like the tournament gets over at 8 p.m, so we might do 8:15. Again, guys, we are not really 100% sure because we tend to play streamers battle every week on leeches. You can definitely join our team, and this week also we might be playing. If you all are free, you can definitely join and play for our team. And every time we always put the link out also, so if you hit the bell icon, like subscribe and hit the bell icon, you will definitely get a notification. We put the link out at least 5-6 hours or 4-5 hours in advance always. So again, any suggestions, definitely mention it in the chat and the live chat, of course. Yes, 7 p.m, yes, okay. Improve your intuition. This is like, again, you understand different positions, automatically your intuition also starts developing. You're talking about intuition, I'm saying like intuitional, like by understanding, I mean, there are different like things about intuition, like understanding, tactical intuition. You want to improve tactical intuition, just follow Mikhail Tal's games or read his book. I don't know the exact thing. It's a biography, I think, or an autobiography. I forgot what it is, or written by whom. Written by himself, I don't know. But you can read his games, and you have chess base. You just like check out all his games. You'll get a good idea about how to play intuitionally. There are some new, like, modern players also who play very well on intuition. Check out their games. You will automatically get an idea. So there is positional intuition. Karpov was excellent at positional intuition. Positional intuition is like, you know exactly where to place the pieces. Like Karpov was one of the players who would not go wrong and know that his bishop belongs right here. It doesn't belong on d1 and doesn't belong on this diagonal. Let's say he had to choose. He would automatically understand very well that his bishop belongs right here on this position, on this diagonal. It restricts much more in the position, and it keeps the option of even going bishop d5. So Karpov was a good example to understand, like get a good example of positional intuition. Visualization. Okay, visualization, how to improve. Visualization, start solving, like you'll automatically improve. Excuse me. No. Okay, so automatically improve. So in this position, white is still better, but as long as it doesn't allow his opponent to get going. Now, if you're black in this position, also you should realize something. We have done this yesterday. How do you think black should continue if he's sure that he is not going to win? He has absolutely no winning chances, and he doesn't really want to risk it by allowing this, and the bishop capturing pawns, and he's getting into some problems. He doesn't want to allow this. What is it that black can do in this position? Can anybody in the chat tell me? White is pretty excited about his bishop entering or restricting. Bishop rook comes here, bishop c7, rook trap, right? White is winning, isn't it? After rook p6, bishop c7, the rook is trapped and white is winning, isn't it? What do you think, chat? What do you think, people here? Improve visualization. One thing is, right, don't move around the pieces. For example, if you are trying to play out the variation here, or you're trying to solve a problem, a common mistake is you play out the moves one by one and then try to solve it. Try to not play out the moves slowly. You don't have to do it first only, like start solving 10 moves and once. Try to slowly, one move, you will progress. You can do it slowly, but don't play the moves out on the board. Or if you're using even in online these platforms to solve problems, don't play out the move beforehand. So basically, after bishop d5, rook d6 is not a draw. Who said rook d6? Rook d6, somebody said. No, rook e6 is what he said. So rook takes d6. Raghav, that is not a draw. This is lost. You have to consider that this is like light pawns. Like this bishop will be having a merry time capturing all the pawns. And we have all the pawns on the dark squares. How wonderful is that? All the pawns on the dark square. The bishop cannot really attack anything. And my king is like, it has a choice. It can go here and eat the small meal here on the queen side, or go for the bigger meal on the king side too. You can choose, because black is not able to do anything much. Your bishop is just ultra powerful here. You cannot really do rook into d6, but you can give the opposite club bishops, and that we had seen yesterday. Sometimes it should be at the back of your mind. Okay, I can sacrifice my rook, so even if I trap it, I can give away my rook. And it's opposite color bishops where black has very good chance to hold it. Again, now one more thing we had discussed, in opposite color bishops, or when you have bishops of like different diagonals, it's the defending side, it's better to always have pawns on the same color as your bishop. And for the attacking side, that is white here, you should have it on the opposite color of the bishop, because it restricts squares. Unfortunately for white here, all his pawns are on the dark squares, the same color of his bishop. It becomes very easy for black to hold this to a draw. So rook c6 is possible, but basically the understanding is that white is still better even though he has a bishop, but that's only because he's having greater control of some squares, better space and better control, no entry for the rook. These are the important factors. Now if we just change it even more and we change it to a dark square, this is when things start getting a little bit interesting, because although white is definitely not worse, he still has good control. He cannot really be too lazy, because once black exchanges the dark square bishops, then suddenly this rook will start becoming more and more effective, and things might, although you have a light square bishop, like let's say bishop f8. Okay, bishop into f8, king into f8 is played on the board. This is where things start getting interesting. Although you have light square bishop and these pawns are on the light squares, you also have to worry that your pawns are all on the dark squares. So the bishop can never be useful for defense. It can only be useful for offense. You can only start capturing all the pawns, but in the process you could very well lose all the pawns too, especially if black is able to somehow activate the rook. So This position is a little risky, so you have to be a little careful. And also sometimes the bishop can be again like this time also. If you play bishop d5, if black wants a draw, sorry, if you play bishop d5, if black wants a draw, he can easily play rook into d6 and then capture the pawn on b2. Once again, opposite color bishops on the board. And this time both of them are having the the better thing for the attacking side. Both of them are on the attacking this because black's bishop is dark squared and all the pawns on the light squares, and white's bishops on the light square and all the pawns on the dark squares. So this sort of formation will be always better if you're trying to go for attack or like trying to go for the win. For example, like if black did not take this, like let's say bishop f8, it's still a draw, guys. It's still a draw because the position is not very ideal, but this sort of setup is much better if white is trying to play for a win because he at least restricts black's bishop a little bit more. So that you can keep in mind next time. So depending on the position, it depends which sacrifice is good, how to play for initiative, that we're all trying to correlate here. They're all related to each other. Now let's just go next. Here we saw an exchange sacrifice. Now again here we can see that black has sacrificed in exchange already in the game. And black has greater control of some squares and etc. Okay. Now this is white to play in the position, and what would you do? What do you think is the evaluation? Like, do you think white is better here? Do you think black has enough understanding? Now again we have knight and pawn for the rook. Sorry, we'll do it the other way around. Knight and pawn for the rook. Rook is stronger definitely. What do you think is the evaluation? How do you think you would rate it again? Do you think black is better? Or do you think white is better? Do you think his knight is strong enough to hold off this rook? How do you understand, and what do you do in this? Basically we are trying to understand how to judge a position, or how to um, I try to judge a position. Let's say that's a simple way to put it. Whether we are better, whether we are worse, whether we are losing, whether the material sacrifice we are doing is good or bad, how to do it. Like, what do you think in the chat? And until then, let me just take 1 minute, guys, and I'll just be back. Yeah. Okay, so the position is equal, right? Now this is white to play, so I'll just put it as white. And what would you do as white in this position? Like, would you want to keep the rooks on the board, one pair of rooks? So do we go with something like king f3, or do you go and capture rook into d6 and trade off one pair of rooks here? How to make this decision? Effectively using your pieces, or effectively exchanging material, or effectively giving up a pawn or a piece. So just is saying that after, yeah, knight is pretty strong. Black has a lot of compensation. You can say this knight is a little bit of a problem for white. Now, should we exchange the rooks or not? Like, should we be clumsy and play king f3 here, or should we take away the rooks? King f3 is what people would play here. Okay, so you want to keep the rooks on the board. So can you tell me one idea? Like, king f3 is not bad here, but can you tell me what you would do? How would you utilize your, let's say if if I just deny the exchange, what would you have done with the king on f3? Like, how do you utilize it? Trade rooks is some people are saying. So we're just trying to understand how to we'll look at both and see what to do in this, like how to decide. If I deny the exchange, or I can even do this, like this is one more possibility on the board, bishop d4. Okay. So when do you trade or when do you not trade, or how to decide, that is also an important thing. So I told you the rooks, if you have rooks on the board, or let's say you have rooks on the board, they have to have open files. At the moment there is one open file for the rook. The e4 knight is doing a good job of preventing the other one. So if you're playing something like king f3, you're giving black a chance to shut down the other file, prevent the exchange of one of the rooks, because you have one open file that you can dominate on, only one. So you have to be sure that you will be able to open up another file for this rook. For example, h3 and g4. You can think of opening up another file, and that there it's okay. Like suppose you had h4 already on the board and a4 already on the board, there you would never allow this position, because let's say you had h4, like I'll just give an example, a4. Now if you allow bishop d4 to come in, you might not be able to utilize both your rooks at all. You will not be able to utilize both the rooks on any open file, or black will be able to take care of all the three files that have a possibility to open up. There you can definitely think of trading off one pair of rooks, because all you can do is utilize one rook on the open file. You cannot do both. And by doing this, you're also preventing bishop d4 from happening. And let's say the same position is on the board, you are not allowing black to consolidate on both the files. You're keeping at least one file open where a rook can go in, d8. It's open important for the rooks to have an open file. You cannot just say I'm materially up and then close down and shut down that rook completely. For example, like I showed you just an example here, even if it lays cd4, you may never be able to utilize both the rooks effectively. They are just shut down in on both. You come here, I will get d3 and I might even progress. You use this, you are using the rook as a passive blockader, and black again may, do this, get knight c5, he may get play. Your rook is doing a bad job here. Now, at least if you had one pair off the board, maybe you could have done it much more effectively. And as we see here, the same. The same thing we do here, but we are not allowing black to block that file, and that one rook can be much more effective in this case. So there you can go for exchanges. So if the position is blockaded, you have no other way to open up the position. Immediately picture that you have an exchange up. I need to open up the position. That is what you need to think of. Like, okay, I'm an exchange up. The position cannot shut down. If I shut down, his knight will be better. Knight better in the close position. So try to relate everything. Yes, b4 also is one thing you can try to do, but again you are allowing some pass pawn to come on the board. Again, unnecessary. So if there's something better, you can look for it. But okay, this is the way you want to do it. You want to keep the position open. The rooks need to be in open files, and that is very important. You cannot just shut down the files, otherwise the rooks will be useless. Extra exchange, pretty much useless. Similarly, if you're in black in this, it's a black to play in this position. So let's just do this. Okay, if it's black to play, you have to also consider what is happening, and accordingly maybe this move bishop b4 can be sometimes useful, especially if everything is locked down. If you're looking at from black's perspective, maybe this move bishop d4 could be useful, especially if all the other files are locked down. You can try to restrict this, limit the mobility of both these rooks. And but if he still has an option like this, then you should try to be faster with your approach. Like you should try to do something quickly, and if you want to do something quickly, I'm sure everybody knows what to do. They have to do something quickly, means they have to get something going and use this knight and pawn. Otherwise, they are not showpieces here. Right now, they are nice artifacts here sitting down. Knight on e4, pawn on c5. Beautifully placed pawn structure, but that is not really going to. You cannot just keep it forever, right? So you have to definitely use it to your benefit and get ahead, like get going. Maybe you to improve it to a better position, put it up higher up the board. So what is it that you would do here? Hello Shrey. As black in this position, if bishop d4 is not working, okay, we are not considering this one now. What else could you do in this position? You have to do something faster. Anybody in the chat, what you would do here? Am I still live? Is the chat here? Is like the chat seems dead to me. Oh, rook c6 is what you would play. Yes, okay, you can play rook c6 to prevent the exchange of the rooks, or you can push not a5. Okay, a5, see, like a5 you were trying to lock down the position, but the timing is not really there. Like if he plays a4, he still has one opening on that side of the board. And secondly, Let's say you can even exchange the rooks, and okay, it's not the best idea here. You have to do it a little bit faster. Bishop b2 also, right? Like if you try to initiate weaknesses, it's not really doing it. For example, if I play a4, I would not consider this as a, sorry, I would not consider this as a weakness here in the position. Because, okay, what will you attack it with? Your knight is beautifully placed it here. You cannot come to this only square which can attack and create problems. That's a fork. You cannot really attack that, and that is not really ideal. So bishop e2 is not really doing that much. So probably you have to rush around with your moves. Like it's the showpiece artifacts have to be pushed forward, and you have to create a pass pawn, because then maybe the rook can be challenged. And if the rook is trying to improve, or let's say white has some like inside ideas to open up on that side, he will be stopped, and you are trying to take the lead here. You're trying to take the lead in initiative in your plan. Like you're trying to go faster. If you just slow down, like if your pawn reaches somewhere like c3, you have to also figure out whether it's good to open up. You can also open up some rook a6, and this is a better way to initiate weaknesses. Like that's why, right, I was playing something like a4 there. I just did not only have the idea of just showing you for like this showpiece purpose, like just for the sake of it. I was also trying to stop b5 from coming on the board. And when I do something like a4 as white in this position, so a4 as white, I also, like when you play a6, I can have some a5 ideas. I can also, like when you play b5, get another open file sometimes. So this bishop was especially not here to go about, like get that open file and enter into your camp. So very useful, keep that in mind. Same goes for h3, trying to create another open file on that side or on the g file. Rooks open files, easy to remember. And b5 would be the way to go in this position. b5 would be the way to go to try to advance. And here white has to be very careful. He has to take d6, because I'm not just only trying to push, I'm also trying to utilize my rook effectively. It's not really open, and you also have a rook at the moment, and rook belongs on open files or targets, potential targets that you can exploit. Rook a6 is also a hidden threat. Sometimes you tend to forget. Sometimes you're only looking at your own ideas. So h3 and rook a6, suddenly black is winning a pawn for absolutely nothing. And this is where rooks shine on the open files or semi-open files also, by the way. Semi-open, this is semi-open, and it's going to be open soon after I capture. Otherwise black will be too passive, right? I mean, this is not what anybody wants to play. It's completely dominating with bishop d4 also. Not really ideal. So this is the way you try to understand. We'll not go too deep into the position, because then we'll head into the end game, which we'll do in the end game series. But here we're trying to focus on how to approach different positions. These are not all my games. These are from multiple games that I've picked up. I have a set of positions which I'm just picking out, and I'm just trying to show you as I go. I do the same in my classes also. So yeah, this is the way I'm picking up some random positions and trying to show. And building a opening repertoire, I think too many people are only focused on the opening repertoire all the time. um, yeah, it's important, but it also depends on which this, like, of course you should build your opening repertoire according to your style of games also, or according to your style of play, which probably a coach will help you figure out. Like, I don't know your style of play, I don't know anything. I cannot just tell you like you play this. Preferably I would try to play openings which are a little bit solid, like not just gambits and small trappish lines. It's not the best approach in the long run. Solid openings, like, that is the better way. Like, okay, that only a coach or somebody who is helping you closely will be able to judge, help you better. You cannot just simply tell you play e4 or play d4 or play b3. That is not the way. You have to figure out according to which are your strong points, which are weak points, and then you can approach that openings. You like open, e4 is the way. You like closed, or you like a slow approach, d4 is the way. So that is the thing. Again, a coach will be better in that regard, somebody who will help you closely. Let's move on to the next one. And here we have okay, sorry, let's put it as white side. Here we have a double exchange sacrifice by white again. As you can see, like, oops, sorry, as you can see, like, black is having two rooks, but he's in some strong annoying pins. So what would you do as white? Like, for a normal style, like, player, like, I'm sure everybody in the chat, most of you all are like quite advanced. So for a normal player, you see an exchange, it's a good idea to immediately pick it up. You may be winning this way also, of course, because you can follow it up with some good checks and maybe get some material back. We are just trying to understand the position and see that he's in a strong pin. So unless it's necessary, sometimes you can take your own time. Unnecessarily, don't go ahead and immediately capture. You can also do some other things sometimes. You have very strong bishops here, and the rooks on the open file. Of course, e6 is open, but his king is like you're pinning his king, so he cannot really utilize this rooks. Rook on f8 cannot really head to b8 and get that open file at least immediately. Same goes for the queen. In this position, let's say your bishop is much better than black's queen because his queen is not really going anywhere. Queens are good on open files. Like queen is the most strongest piece. He can go on open files diagonals. He has to enter some certain points. Like for example, this is just for like just for showing. Of course, queen b7 is winning immediately, but you see this hole here and the d2 square. These are the squares that your opponent or your king, like his queen, needs to enter. Same goes for you b7. These are the kind of holes, and the queen can only reach. Rarely a rook can reach in that way. Rarely a bishop can be as useful as the queen in that way. No, the piece can be. So queen needs to enter your opponent's camp, or like be useful in this way, because it can head to multiple positions, or it can head to the other side, it can do everything, right? So the queen will be useful in that situation. Here you can see it's not really getting there quickly, and yes, it's also like doing a good job of controlling. Similarly, for your queen, you can also be very creative. Let's say the position was well defended. Okay, now bishop e6 is winning. Let's give him some hope. Everything is protected now. You're not really winning with bishop e6. Guys, first I will just highlight and show bishop e6, king e6. You can simply go queen e3 check. I'm sure everybody must have got this. Thank you, Deepak. Glad you're enjoying the session. King d7, queen e7, and this is where you can stop calculating because you're winning material. You're a piece up good enough. You can stop right here and start calculating something else. Don't try to calculate and waste your time seeing whether okay, he'll play queen c4, I'll mate, I'll calculate. No, that is not needed. You can definitely stop here as long as your king is safe. As long as your king is not being giving perpetual. Okay, the queen can be very resourceful this way also. You should not run into perpetual and like draw this game. You're good. You can stop right there. Queen e7, you're winning. King goes here, queen e7, and you're winning him by the mate. So that's a simple thing to understand first, that you're able to win with bishop into e6. Now we are just changing the position slightly, and suppose this is the case on the board. How would you continue in this position? This is where you should try to utilize your bishops and the pins that he's in to your benefit. White to play. Anybody can tell me like what you would think of doing in this position. You can try to improve as much as possible basically. He doesn't have rook into e2, right? That's one small problem for him. Yes, of course, because bishop e3, bishop e6, queen e3, that's winning. It's the simplest, but we have slightly changed it and made by king f2. So we are just trying to understand what to do in this position now. And you're free to explain any plans, okay? Just like I'm playing king f2, which is not the best move. You can also tell me if you have any plan, or you want to improve a certain piece to a better square or something. You feel free to tell, okay? That way you don't have to tell me the exact, like, proper, like I'm going to play this way and this is the way. No, you can tell me your ideas freely. Okay, queen b7 is one of the ideas that you're saying. A5 is one of the ideas. Okay, g4 trying to open up. Okay, very good. You can think of many different things in these positions, and you can also like picture where your squares could be better placed. That can also be a learning technique for you. For example, not the move or the mode or the exact thing to do. For example, I will play queen b1. What I'm thinking of is not playing queen b1 and then going queen h1. I'm thinking my queen can be better placed on h1. If it's possible, I could try to utilize that idea to my benefit. My queen on h1, queen on h3, because it's attacking h7. So this should be there at the back of your mind, whether I can maneuver or improve my queen. Just like I told you earlier, queen is very powerful like that. Imagine your queen on h6, it would have been immediately a mate straight away. The queen can be very powerful. If I can get it there in time, I can think of that idea also. Queen can be very resourceful in h1, it can hit b7. What about this move? This is just for like instructional purposes. And then queen b7, whether that could be useful, like the queen can be jumping around. Now this is secondly, I'm just taking the idea, I can try to think of where I can place my queen, and accordingly I can decide my variation. But you all have much better ideas here in the chat, with queen b5 being one of them. Simple idea, trying to exchange and connect my pawns. If I connect it this way or this way, I can, the rooks will be completely dominated, because my two pawns, again the rook is not really strong enough in closed files or closed positions, needs open files, and needs to attack the position immediately. 1 minute. The position immediately here, it's not really working out very well for black. Similarly, a5, b7 is a strong square, black cannot capture, he gets queen b7 and you're meeting him. A5, sorry, a5 is a b7 is a strong square, a5 is a good move to try to take over that square. Very nice, you all have a lot of ideas here. And one important thing is, just like I did in my game initially, first example which I showed you, I rushed into the plan. You can verify which plan is good for you and accordingly play it out. For example, right, if I play this move queen b5, black can play queen c8 and can still hold, but is still doing good. But your move a5 is even more precise. Now let's say I cannot capture this, so what if I do king f8? What is the continuation now? What do I do here? We had one more idea actually, which I will again get back to. One more person had one more idea in this which I really liked, and I will show you that idea also. But here, the topic is just about material sacrifice and how, like, understanding different patterns, positions, imbalances, playing for initiative. So just doing with that. I've shown also my example. I'll also show some examples of games, my games, and I will show you the positions there, what I did differently, etc. So just something simple and hopefully exciting to you people. Yeah, so queen b6 and bishop e6. Like queen b6, like, come on, like you have to verify, right? Tom, sorry, you have to verify that rook into e2. King has moved out of that pin now. Very careful. You have to be concerned about rook into e2 and the rook coming in. That will be dangerous. Now you're lost. It's time that the rooks, now the bishops are useless. The rooks will completely start. You can even get mated on the next move. But the rooks, I think you're getting even mated maybe, or maybe not. Maybe you're escaping. But if you go here and like run away, you will, oh, okay, the bishop is covering. But still, like you can see that the rooks now will join in. Like let's say rook b1, he'll just start capturing everything along the way, and the two bishops will not be enough. Like the bishop will, the rooks are not, rooks are going to be very powerful if you allow them inside your camp. So bishop e6 is definitely good. Rook into e6, and somebody said queen c7. Queen b8 check, yeah. Queen b8 check first. Don't misplace the moves. And if the rook goes, queen e7. Now again, this, some of these variations you will need to calculate, because okay, queen and this can be resourceful, but you're able to go there immediately. For example, queen b6 would be a mistake here, or even here. Queen b6 may not be winning because he's able to, first of all, there are the bishop, like, rook is not tied down now. So besides this, if you just only calculate about this, white is still winning. But if you go and capture this, white is definitely losing, because the rooks will now be very resourceful on the open files. Everything will start falling here, everything is weak. So black is not, like, completely down in material. Everything will start falling, the bishop will not be effective. So you have to be very careful as to what you execute here. Queen b8 and queen c7, and then utilizing the mating attack, which wins. Now if you were really worried and still wanted to keep this bishop on the board, there is one more idea which you could play out in this. Somebody had said it, e4, and this idea is also pretty interesting. Not really the best or working out, which I will show you why. But f into e4, and you're trying to take away another open file here with king e3. Now this idea, I'm not really 100% sure if it works out, but it's a very nice instructive idea, with king e3 blocking that file itself. So if he goes here, now you're not, like, you're not forced to only take this. You can also, like, move your queen and continue, because the rook only is good on the open file and he's not having any open file to play with. And we'll not go too deep with this, but you understood the point and idea. e4 was a very nice move. Somebody said it, I don't remember who, but e4 was also a nice idea, but it has to be followed with king e3, blocking that pawn and not allowing this rook to enter. Even one small mistake like this could make a big difference. The rook might sacrifice an enter in, so could make a big difference. And also, like, I think you could also, like, utilize your bishops to your benefit this way. But nice idea here. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, sorry, this is not the position. Now here. Okay, so we were discussing about initiative and all, right? So correlated. Now here you can see what has happened on the board. White has gone, like, it started with some different opening. It's not opening is not the most important, but we have a position here on the board where the king is in the center and black is just two moves away from completing development. Like, the rook joins the party, then his development is complete, the bishop is coming to b7. And white has done something oddly here. He's still going with h4 and he has still continued with h5. So in this position, h5 is not a good move. White should have just calmly bishop g2, and after this he should have castled, right? What do you think? I mean, it's like you have started with h4, but I think the king is quite safe on g1, right? So you can castle and continue in this position. Like, do you all agree with me? What do you think, Chad? I think castling looks quite good to me. And even though I don't like this weakness on h4, I think I can definitely castle, take the king to safety, and then look at rook development and continue, right? Isn't it? Like, do you all agree? I was hoping somebody would disagree with me, but okay, so somebody is indeed disagreeing with me. Black's bishops are quite strong on this diagonal, and some people are talking about f4, and some people are talking about queen g3, and queen g3 is coming. You have to be very careful when the bishop is there. I cannot really castle immediately on this side of the board. The attack is too strong, but mainly it is because of queen g3. Like, queen g3, f4 is not the main concern. You can still, like, play g4, and surprisingly white is completely okay here, because when you play f4, you should be very careful when you go ahead with your moves and attacking ideas. Like, you should just not play immediately f4 and, like, give away weak squares, like create weaknesses here and holes on e4, because your attack, you don't have that many pieces aiming on this side of the, sorry, you don't have that many pieces aiming towards this side of the board. You're aiming here on f2 and this. Your main goal is to open up on the f file if possible, not on the g file. Possibly, maybe you can delay f4, or you can take control of this square first and then play f4 and open up. But here the major reason is you have to be very alert with the tactical this also. Tactics, one of the main thing. Finally, queen into g3 and you're lost. It's game over. You might try some hopeless b4. And can anybody tell me in the chat what you would do in this position? It's trying to deflect this bishop. So if I take here, g3 is costing me the queen, but I'm sure you can look for what is black's best move in the position. We'll come back to long castle. Yes, we'll come back to long castle in a moment, but let's just solve one small simple tactic here to keep ourselves alert. There are many ways for black to win here. Anybody? Yes, most of them are agreeing with knight f4, which is a beautiful thing here. And after this, it's going to be mate in a couple of moves. Black can probably only defend, white can only probably defend with knight e1. And what is the follow-up? And this is where, if you want to improve your visualization, right? Try to, let's say you're starting with some silly, simple problems. Try to solve them completely. I see that on many websites. And so you get the thing to play the move out, and then you have to play the next move out. So people play the first move immediately, they know the obvious move, and then they will start calculating here. This is not a good idea. You try to calculate the entire variation. If you can see three moves clearly, three moves, then four moves, then five moves, that is the way you will improve your calculation also. Try to improve it that way. Don't get don't just look at it one move. Like, one move will never help you improve your game. In the game, you will not get a chance to play out the variation and then take it back if it's wrong. You will not only get a penalty for, like, puzzle, like, it'll be the penalty for the entire game, and then maybe In a classical game, you might have to wait for the next 24 hours to play the next game. It's very sad, right? So possibly you can improve at home, try to develop a habit. Knight e1 and knight into b4 is people are looking at. Okay, knight e2 check. Yes, knight e2 check is the fastest way. Of course, there are many ways to win here. You can play it anyways, but then you can try to verify if you have time on the clock, and if you don't have time, you can easily go for the easiest thing that you feel is good. Knight d4, knight b4. There are just too many options, and you're just spoiled for choice here. You just have too many things, and everything is winning here. But knight e2 and queen h3 is simple. We have a mate. Also, one more thing, right? Like this is a small tip to people who are like already at the advanced stage, or like who are already feeling like they can already play good chess. They can calculate very well. I just gave you a position here, which is not on. This is only for people who have been playing chess for a long time, and they have already solved a lot of tactics. They're solving it regularly. I can see many people here are already like quite decently strong here. Start looking at your position from your opponent's point of view. So this problem which I solved with you now, I didn't put it from this angle. I didn't put it from black side because it was black to play, but I put it from white side. So try this will help you develop the skill of looking for your opponent's resources also. Not always is like you playing b4 is not the only thing that you're going to do. You're also going to see your opponent's ideas. So if you're black here, it's very easy to spot that if he castles, I have queen into g3. But sometimes it's not so easy for people to spot it that your opponent also can play queen into g3. Look for your opponent's ideas. So look at it from the other side also. Flip the board and also look at it. A small tip for people who have already been solving for a long time. This is not for people who are starting out fresh, okay? Only for people who have been doing it for a very long time. Anyways, so castling on the queen side is not really possible, right guys? Like f2 is hanging here. Are you willing to give f2? Probably not, right? You will have to take care of it. Knight b3. The better idea was to kick this bishop away first. This is the most dangerous bishop. Knight b3. Let's say black goes back, or let's say black goes back here. Just let's put it there. Then white could have easily castled also because g3 is no longer falling. I think now I would not castle on the queen side, although I still feel like this is also good to initiate an attack. But I feel like the king is a little bit more weaker on the queen side here. Knight b4, bishop e4. I don't like my chances. I will rather focus on castling king side, attacking the weaknesses, and try to attack the weak point squares, maybe target the e6 pawn. This was a simple way to play, but what white did is white played h5. He is going aggressively. He's also a very decent and strong player, and I'll just let you know the players. The players are Max Away. I'm destroying the pronunciation a little bit. I used to call it Iway, but I think it's Av or something. Making a mistake maybe there. And black is definitely the great old Akiba Rubinstein. So black played h5 here. He is going for aggression. Black played knight e5. So knight e5. Like this was the position. Sorry, bishop g2 is not on the board. h5 and knight e5. So knight into e5. Knight into e5. Now white could have gone bishop g2 also in the position, but again bishop b7 leads to exchanges. White's idea was that he will try to keep more pieces on the board because he's trying to go for an offensive attack here. Now white went with b4. So what white is trying to do is before black starts his attack, right, he's trying to take control, push black's pieces back, and trying to gain some initiative and start his attack immediately. For example, if black goes back here, he takes bishop g2. Now bishop b7, he has bishop into e5 is not okay. This is lost for me. Sorry, my bad. This is not really good. Too many things in the air here. But I can definitely capture bishop b7. I have pushed this bishop back, and now I can even think of castling on the queen side and start an offense. This was white's idea in the position. He wanted to go for something offensive, take the lead in development, take the initiative. White played b4 here. Now I want you to look at it from black side and tell me what do you think black should do in the position. What do you think black did here in this game? Once again, guys who are new here can definitely hit the like button and subscribe. That really helps a lot to bring more people. We are glad that you are here, and we are glad if more people also join in. Do call your friends and family if they're into chess. Would really love to help them and get their input too. Let's make it more exciting, guys. Hit the like button and do subscribe if you feel like my content is good. Suggestions, comment section is down there. Discord is open to you. Feel free. Bishop f2 and knight g4 looks dangerous. Okay, very nice. Looks dangerous indeed. Is it really dangerous though? So now I'm highlighting based on a theme to you. As you can see on the screen, like as you can see on the screen, like we have material sacrifice today. So in the game, there will be nobody telling you like it's material sacrifice that you're going to focus on. Today is material sacrifice day. Look at all the materials, like this is not going to happen, so you have to do it on your own on the board. Bishop f2 is a material sacrifice, so everybody I think maybe is looking at that, but when exactly you do it is what we need to understand. Like we saw exchange sacrifice, what to do in exchange sacrifice, why we are giving up the exchange. We're trying to fight for initiative, we're trying to fight for good squares. Now here what is happening is black feels like if he goes bishop e7, once again this player is Rubinstein. You know what he's good for, you know what he's famous for, you have seen his games, and if you haven't you can definitely check out one of the games that's Nandi has analyzed on our channel. We have also done a lot of like we have followed a lot of Rubinstein in the past, and I have also learned from his games. But he's not known for like the most attacking or tactical mind-blowing play here. But he also understands that initiative is an important element, and thus he goes ahead and captures bishop into f2. Now, why exactly? White's development is lacking. Pieces are not really well placed. Black is able to get his pieces immediately into the game. These are the few ways you understand why exactly it would be okay to go for this. Clearly black cannot go here and keep his king safe. One more important element, queen into g3 and he's mated. Bishop f2 king d1, bishop f2 king d1. We'll come back to that. Just like clearly king d1 means I'm happy. I don't even have to be calculating anything. I'm just winning a pawn. For like a king is in the center, I win a pawn. I don't think that is what you want to do, right? Like obviously, like black is just completely winning here. Your king is in the center, a free pawn for me, and white's initiative has disappeared. Like there is no initiative. The king is now in the way here. It's a soft target. A beautiful king there for black to exploit. So no, you have to take up the challenge. So that's one more thing. Forced to take up the challenge, cannot be declined. Knight g4 cannot really do anything. Cannot keep the king safer on the corner. Knight e3 is there. You win the queen. So he has to keep the king in the center, which further will restrict this piece play. Okay. Now here Rubinstein made a mistake. He did not play the best move in the position, but we are not in the generation of the engines, and we are not calculating like engines. I think even I would have done the same mistake in the position. And like I'll show you why, but I have analyzed it here in the notation, so I will just tell you. Bishop b7 is engine's recommendation here, and you're allowing this rook to come and defend this pawn for nothing, and then you bring the rook into the game. Okay, now, is this something that you would have played? Not really. We are humans. We are trying to understand that we need to capture one pawn at least, and the king is on e2. This is just too much. Like, rook a d8 and continue in this position is just too much in this position. A pawn is available up there for grabs. We take it on g3. So, we don't really understand. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, even looking at openings, some players play like this and then they don't understand what they have done. Then they only start thinking out of the board, what did I just not capture g3 for? Engine showed this. I don't understand what he's trying to achieve here. This is a common mistake when you're learning openings also on the in the this. You see engine variations and you don't understand what is happening. Like I don't understand rook a d8 in this position is the opening engine move. I don't understand. I'm getting a free pawn here and I'm playing rook a d8. Are you sure? Like then you start doubting yourself and you're not sure. So when you're playing in opening, or even if you're looking at it with engine, a coach will help you better in this though. But you should try to understand why you're doing it. Don't simply just because the engine is showing it, play that. The engine, you're not engine. So try to understand. That's why understanding is much more important than just memorizing everything. Always will help you better. That will help in every aspect of life, but chess also is the same. Queen into g3, he played bishop d4 and he played bishop b7. Again, a very natural thing. Again, the engine is suggesting something like queen d6, which is ridiculous. Like we don't understand queen d6. A bishop is coming out. Rook h3 and queen d6. White played queen c3 and here he played e5 to drive away. Again, it was a slight mistake in this position, but we understand his ideas. Now, why exactly we are focused more on the point that he sacrificed material here or sacrificed a piece for initiative to get pieces going. And he's following the right concept here with e5. He's getting his pawns advanced. He's joining his rook into the game. He's able to, make sense of his. I read your chat. Sorry, I was saying make utilize his pieces effectively, and black white pieces are not really joining in into the game immediately. Like let's say, think about the rook. The rook is better on open files. This is I was explaining you earlier also. So let's just make the next move in the position. Okay, rook is better on the open files. Bishops are better on open diagonals. Queen is better when it can generate active threats. And what we can see from Black's point of view is after rook d8, he has rooks on open files, he has bishop on open diagonal, he has knight on an outpost, and he's restricting white's pieces also. So it's easy to understand that okay, this position I have more than enough compensation, I have more than enough play, I can freely enter this, and I think what I'm doing is definitely right because when I play e5, I'm also cutting out this important diagonal. It may not be the best move according to engine, but you're trying to understand why you're playing out your moves. We are not like engines. Like the engine is saying we'll play c5 next move. Are you really going to think of pushing c5 and expose your king completely? Not really. You're trying to understand why you're doing is. That's why we're trying to understand their play. Rook a d8 is not very natural here because there's a pawn also hanging and we'll need some calculation. What your goal is trying to close down that diagonal, push your pawns forward, gain more space, the things we have done in the past, space advantage, limiting piece mobility, understanding where the pieces belong, diagonals. No diagonals for white whatsoever. We have beautiful diagonals. Queen, where exactly queen can be useful? I told you those important minute entry points that your opponent can give you. Like let's say rook a d8 and the rook was not here, knight moves, queen enters on d1. Queen can be very useful if it can enter on f3 c6. Like, these are the squares which the queen can immediately enter on. Similarly, when black plays rook a d8, suddenly bishop h8, the queen can enter on g7. Like queen can be very useful on this sort of squares. Now here is getting trapped after bishop h8, like e5, you can trap this, but it's not very natural again. E5, bishop d3, what is the immediate threat? Rook d3, exchanging pieces is one thing that black white can do. He can try to utilize or get his pieces on the open file. So again, black played f4 here to take care of it, but he could also play e4 to take care of it. That is also possible, and then push pawns. It's much natural way, and white will have to be very precise with his play. So f4 was played, black played c5, white simply put queen h6. Again, I told you the queen can be very resourceful on those important key squares and things like d, like you can be very so you can move around and can be very resourceful on the small important like squares that you can simply enter the position. Like let's say here in the long run I can say that rook at d8, and somewhere when I give f3 check, my queen can somehow like enter d2 c1. These are the squares my queen is eyeing, and queen at 6 is a good square to keep it on. Similarly, otherwise queen e6 also would have been good, but preferably like you see a bishop, you don't want to put it on that square, like unnecessarily some pins can come. That's not very ideal. So king e1, rook d8, king e1, let's say rook e8, casually I play rook e8, so might get some chances. Queen b3 is one of them, and then queen into d5 sacrifice. Like this is exchanging the queens. I know the attack is strong, I wanted to exchange queens. You can also do it this way, by the way. Okay, that's a simpler way. And just queen b3 and exchange the queens off the board. And if I do queen b3, what will you do in this position, guys? Can you tell me simply? Well, thanks, Subhajit. Great that you're enjoying the lesson. What would you do for queen into b3, guys? A into b3. Exactly, that is what you understand from all these things. Like I'm telling you, open files, open diagonals. A into b3 gives you a chance to immediately activate your rook, and that's why You have to understand which move will be helpful. Like I could have also played queen c4, activating my knight. I chose queen b3, but it depends on which pawn you think is more important for you at the moment. I feel like queen b3 activating my rook, because I know that knight can anyways come here. I can put it straight by myself, or I can put it from here myself. But ab3 I will not get by myself. Like I will not be able to move my pawn to b3, right? So that's why I played queen b3, trying to force him and then utilize that diagonal capture and open up my file. I still have knight c4, knight d6 coming in either ways. So let's see what happened in the game. Okay, king e1, e4, and you start pushing in. Like okay, we are not really this knight rook h4, and finally rook h4 was played, which is a mistake. But what happens is knight into queen. Yeah, knight into queen. Like see, knight. Okay, that position. Like see, trying to understand again. See, knight into queen. Is the knight having any future? Is the knight going anywhere useful? No, it's not going anywhere useful, right? If I wanted to improve my knight, why not just do queen c4? According to where you wanted to do it, right? Where you want to, which piece you want to improve, that way you try to do it. Queen c4. Now knight into queen is automatically heading to d6. I would do it this way. But why I did with queen b3 is because I also thought about my rook. I know I cannot castle. Remember, don't forget that you cannot castle. The king is in the center. You have moved your king many times. You cannot castle. So if you cannot castle, why not just activate the rook on that side straight away and activate? You have knight e4, knight d6 anyways. The knight can come in this way into the game. That's why I did not capture with the knight. If I wanted to capture with my knight and I thought this is the most important piece for me to improve, right, I would play queen c4 so that I can bring my knight this way. That's why not knight into queen on knight into b3. Now king e1, e4, you're trying to activate and make some play here. Push the pawns forward. Rook h4, queen g5. This was a mistake. I should have played knight c4, but again, it is already very difficult for black, like for white, sorry. Already very difficult once you play e3, because both these bishops are not really getting activated. The rook is not having an open file. If you look at it humanly, this is not really possible or easy for white to improve at all. Even though it's like, even though like we are not engine is definitely saying white is still better here, but that is not what we are trying to understand. We're trying to understand the main point of the position and what exactly where the pieces are. If you look at it, if anybody, even like strong grandmasters, they look at this, they will say black is better because white's pieces are just stuck. We are not calculating like engine, we are not calculating 50 moves deep, we are calculating a certain point. But if you look at it or try to understand the position, black is definitely stuck here. Bishops are inside, king is in the center, rook on e. Nothing is like out there. A rook on the open file is not there. One pass pawn is there on c5, which still cannot be utilized without the support of your pieces. If you have no pieces, you have no attack, and probably you're going to lose, most likely, because he's playing very precisely engines. And I guess ready, like if I play this also, if I push f3 for example, we are already very concerned about f2 and the king getting mated, and engine is capturing knight into b7 and trying to run away. Like, so it's very difficult to play like that. And if you look at it, uh like if you look at it from a human perspective, it's already difficult. So white did the most natural thing. This knight is going to be annoying, my rook is not very useful, I'm trying to give away some material. And we see something like he was thinking maybe I can exchange sacrifice, I can get my pieces in quickly. Something like that is needed. Now he played queen h3 in the game, white played knight e3. And this was a nice move, knight e3. It was very nice, knight e3. The point is that he's trying to open up his rook and immediately, the tactical resource. But the other thing that black could have done, even if he plays here, it's still very strong, because still this rook and queen are not doing that, the most effective things that they can do on an open file, or utilize any possible entry points. The queen has none and the rook is closed. So even this move would be good, but black played knight e3, bishop e3, f e3, attacking this knight. And the main point is, again, black is sacrificing material, but once black loses the bishop, queen is going to activate, and the queen is like, we'll see the queen's potential now. Knight to e4, you can have queen e5, which is, like I told you, those important small entry points that the queen has can be very useful. This is one of them. Queen b2 suddenly is like, you might even get mated. Queen is very good at these things. White's queen is not doing the same. So not very useful here. Well, thanks a lot, Shreya. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And white played bishop c4, king h8. That didn't really help. Knight f1, trying to hold it. And there we see the queen coming to its forte. Queen f6 and queen a1. And these are the things that queen is always good at, because no other piece can do the same. No other piece, not the rook, not the queen, because rook doesn't have diagonal capacities, right? Diagonally also there, f2 is also under attack, this is also under attack, and the queen is going to enter via b2 c3. There is absolutely nothing that black can do. White is max away, or I used to call him Iway earlier, but I think that's the mispronunciation. I think Max I think it's if I'm not mistaken. I may be destroying the pronunciation, but that's Dr. Max He's a mathematician also. And then black is Rubinstein, Akiba Rubinstein, the great old Akiba, of course. Everybody knows Rubinstein, right? I hope everybody knows Rubinstein. So Queen f6 and black basically resigned because these threats are too strong. And of course now engine is of course with us here onwards. It's not like it's lost already, so it's with us. Let's go next. Yeah, here also this is one brilliant position. And again, understanding the value of pieces, how to make it useful. Like here now, if you see, right, black played this tactical resource move. Okay, so if you think about it, like okay, if you think about it, black is trying to hold. White has bishops. Black has a very bad bishop behind all this. You're understanding the value of pieces. Okay, the bishop can never improve itself. Knight is one thing which can be at least resourceful. In such close positions, the knight comes to the forte because you can jump around. Like you can jump around, enter somewhere. Like only the knight can do it. Black's bishop cannot really jump around anywhere. He cannot jump around on this side. He cannot jump around on this side. The bishop is basically dead. Like it's not coming into the game unless somehow, white helps him and opens up everything willingly. Then only the bishop can come into the game. So the bishop is dead. We can sometimes, even in such positions, consider black to be, one minute, consider black to be a piece down because of this bishop. Sometimes, okay? Not here. Not immediately in this position, but sometimes black can be considered a piece down. Black has two ways to approach the position. One is g4 and go for an offense, counterplay. And another one is trying to, hold down, sit down with a fortress. So black chose the second. He went with knight here. Now, if I play g4, right, you should try to think of ideas which can use your queen to the forte. Like, the queen can also join in the party. Let's say you play fg4. And I was telling you some important, like, squares that the queen can capture. Sometimes this kind of moves, of course, let's not forget the rook. But this kind of moves can be very useful to enter that queen. This is the kind of things I was telling you, like, those important entry points. Only the queen can queen can get in and very resourcefully use that. Similarly, right, if I had locked down, I would not take fg4 actually, to be honest. Or let's say I have a tactical resource actually, bishop h4. I'll show this is why the queen is very useful. And the queen can utilize that and enter inside. Now if you do bishop rook into this, I will still capture queen into c2, completely ignoring once again the queen is coming to the forte. Only the queen can do this, forcing the trade-off, and suddenly I am queening. But always the but is there. I am still not going to give up. I'm still going to continue. What will you do in this position? I'm not ready to give up yet. You should also not be ready to give up in the game yet, until the last moment. So what does white do here? Yes, I just came across it accidentally and it worked out fine. Luckily, it worked out fine. So I came across tactic, but it's not over yet, right? So what do we do in this position? Just h3, exactly. Just h3, attack that knight, take care of that, and now you have the queen going. You have see it coming in, you have taken care of that final thing that black had. Otherwise, black would be very excited to give you a nice little perpetual here, and it would have been a draw. So don't give up until the last. You can always find some resources like me, like I did here. And I will show you my games also sometimes where I've found such resources to be very useful. So black, on the other hand, shows this move knight d7. He's trying to enter knight c5 and trying to, go for the opposite kill bishops. He's basically on the verge of trying to just hold a fortress here. Now, White had many ways, and I'm sure people in the chat or anybody can tell me one of them, like what you would do in this position. You can activate certain pieces. You know the potential of which piece, like rook is good open file, queen is good for entry points and open files, and you can also utilize your bishops. Yeah, we already have a Discord server, Subhajit. Like I've been telling for so long. We have Discord. Of course, we have this. It's right there in the description, Subhajit. You can definitely join in on Discord. For a long time, we have been having it, and we would be really glad to have you on the server. Definitely have some channels there. You have bishops, which can be very useful on the open diagonals. So which move can you think of here? I'm sure some people must be thinking of the simple approach in this position and should know what to do in this, how to continue. Anybody in the chat, guys? It is also to do with putting one of the things is you can also think of it as maneuvering your pieces or putting them on better squares. It's also relevant here. I'm sure somebody must have looked at this move g3. If you're trying to activate the bishop onto the open diagonal, you should try to see where it will be useful and resourceful. Accordingly, you can put it there. Like g3, you're trying to activate via bishop h3 and get it to that h3 d7 c8 diagonal. You're going to be very strongly placed there with bishop e6 coming in, and then you're, let's say if he plays knight c5 casually, this is not working because once you capture, it's your queen that is very importantly going to enter. Like just told you the resourcefulness of this queen, and then supported by the bishop here or here after d6, your queen will just be devastated. It's just going to collapse for white, for black, sorry, not for white. White is going to win. It will collapse for black completely in this situation. So it's not just going to be easy for him to hold. This was one way to play, but white had other ideas, and this is also like, this is not a very old game. This is Saki's live. It's in 1989, very modern game that way. White played a like fabulous move here, and it's like again a material sacrifice, but understanding which pieces will be more resourceful, like the rook, the queen, the bishops, yes, they can obviously join and be very resourceful at the moment. We have pawns here which will be very resourceful and useful. Like I showed you a variation about sacrificing material and the queen was reaching c7. Similarly, the pawns are going to be used to the benefit here, and white plays this beautiful picturesque rook c6 on the board. What he's trying to do is he's trying to get the file. Like if you try to think about getting the file, how can you do it? You would try to put the queen on c1 and then rook into c2, queen into c2, and the queen will enter c7, but it'll take too much time to maneuver there. Rook c6 is beautiful because it opens up all the diagonals possible. If you take dc6, dc6, rook stays bad. And like again, let's look at the value and understanding of the pieces. The rook is bad, queen is badly placed, knight is not very useful, and our bishops have come to the party. The queen is going to be useful with those entry points that he's going to get with the help of his bishops. Just bishop a6, and the three pawns are much stronger than his rook at the moment. Again, 2 pawns, 5 pawns are considered to be value as a rook, right? But here we have only three, but it's just too strong. And with c7 to follow, absolutely nothing that black can do. He's also like missing a light square bishop here, at least to save his king. Like the king is bad, the king bishop on e7 is not even very useful here for him. So rook c6 was a beautiful rook sacrifice, and the point is that if black refuses, like he played b6 in the game, but if he refuses anything like this, You can capture, and you can utilize the rook on the open side also. That's also one option. But the other thing you can do is you can also, like, think of using your queen that way, or maybe you can put the rook here itself. Like, that's even simpler. Looking forward to those queen entry points. I'm sure maybe people in the chat may come up with something even better afterwards, but this is a simple thing, like we're trying to understand. The rook will be useful, and at the moment after capturing, the pawns are the ones, along with the support of the bishops, will be just too much for black to handle. The pawns become much more valuable, even just two of them, much more valuable than the rook in the moment. You see this often happen in the end game, but here you see this happen in the middle game itself. Like, the pawns are just, because the diagonals and other things also are supportive, your queen, your bishops, but the pawns are just too strong, and the rook and the queen together can do absolutely nothing. The queen and the rook badly placed there. They would have liked to be outside on b1, c1 to generate some counterplay, but that's not the case. And you cannot even sacrifice material to get something going. Like, this doesn't do anything. Your bishops are going to join in, the queen is going to join. Absolutely nothing that black can do. Beautiful rook sacrifice, and that was the end. BCC, we'll see what happened actually. Knight c5 was played. White took c5. Again, like, even just giving away his bishop, and you will see that rook down at the moment, but it is lost. There's absolutely nothing that black can do. Bishop into a6, he can't move a single piece. Rook f8, c7, queen c4. Simply improving, and then b7. It's over. Resigned finally, because the two pawns are going to queen here. One of them will queen at least, and black can do nothing to stop it. Now, there is one thing that this is beautiful. You can definitely witness. It's a beautiful combination. Once again, the game is between Saki's Lev and Rihans. Rihans, okay, not Rihan. Rihans, from in Amsterdam in 1989. Again, so here, one thing to keep in mind is, suppose the queens are off the board, maybe black had some inside chances by sacrificing the rook for one pawn and trying for opposite color bishop endgame. So how do we show it here? We'll not show it here, but we'll definitely do those exercises in the endgame exercise. And tomorrow again we'll be continuing with the same topic, guys. We'll be continuing with the same topic of material sacrifice. We have a lot still to cover, a lot of games and positions. I will also show some of my games and examples, and we'll finish off with this beautiful rook c6 on the board. Looks good. A rook sacrifice straight out in the open here, and that's it. So we'll stop today, and we will again meet tomorrow 7 p.m. So hopefully, if you did enjoy, then do hit the like button, and definitely you can call your friends and family also if they're interested in chess and they want to learn something. If you like my explanation, and I will see you tomorrow again at the same time, 7 p.m. Until then, have a nice good evening, and um, enjoy your day wherever you are. I will see you tomorrow 7 p.m. guys. Bye bye.